there's one topic that is often misunderstood by strength coaches, and you really have two camps that are really black or white. And I'm talking about the use of limited or partial range of motion exercises when it comes to improving sports performance. Now, on one side of the equation, you have the purists who say that you always need to go full range of motion. When you're squatting, you need to go ass to the grass, otherwise it's not a real squat. Same thing when you do bench pressing, you need to go all the way down to your chest, otherwise you don't get full benefits. Well, there are some good points in that regard. Yeah, I believe that the full squat is a more complete exercise than, let's say, a half or a quarter back squat. But it's not to say that those partial lifts don't have their place in a training program of athletes. It's called accentuation. Accentuation is a principle that was first explained by Vladimir Zatsiorsky in the Science and Practice of Strength Training. Accentuation refers to putting an emphasis on the range of motion or the joint angles being used in your sport. So let's say, for example, you are a running back or you are a sprinter. Very rarely will your knee bend to that degree that you have in a full squat. But when you're running, most of the time the knee angle will be roughly about 100 degrees. So in that regard, the 100-degree knee angle is a lot more specific to sports performance. So the argument for partial range of motion training is that you make the range of motion specific to your sport a lot stronger. You're not wasting energy training unnecessary range of motion. So these are the two schools of thought. The first school of thought, you need to do full range of motion, because full range of motion ensures muscle balance, because if you only do quarter squats, you will underdevelop the glutes and hamstrings, for example, while overbuilding the quadriceps. You also make the joint more functional. If you work over the full range of motion, you are working on maintaining that optimal hip mechanic. And also, of course, the other equation is that partial range of movement, where you use more weight, can be more traumatizing on the joints, the knee, the shoulder, more importantly. So that is you don't do partial movement side of things. Then you have the other side that say, well, those partial range of motion allow you to use more weight than a full range movement and in a sport specific angle. So the increase in performance will be more important. And I will say that I have seen it work. I mean, one of the exercises I've seen increase vertical jump performance the most is the use of heavy half squat, 90-degree, 100-degree knee angle, because you overload the angle needed. You get very, very strong in that position. That having been said, I believe that this approach, using partial range of motion for sports performance, should never be used by athletes who have not built a very strong foundation of overall muscle balance and experience on the full range of movement. Because you want to make sure that before you're using a very drastic overload, right? Because those partial movements allow you to use a lot more weight than the full range, that before you are creating that drastic overload, you want to make sure that all the muscles surrounding a joint can handle the load. You also want to make sure that the structures are functional enough to sustain those overloads. So it's something that has value, especially for the lower body training. But it has a value mostly with advanced athletes. And honestly, it should only be used as the last tool in the progression model. First, you would use full range of motion lifts. Once you are very strong at the full range of movement lifts and very efficient, then you might want to overload the top half, the sport-specific half, by adding chains or bands to the bar. So now I'm still doing the full range of motion, but by adding chains, the top portion remains overloaded, but I'm still training the joints to go full range of motion. That's where most of the athletes should stop. But for the very advanced one, you might want to include some partial lifts, so only top half, top quarter with very heavy weights to make sure that you can really overload that muscle. But it's a tool that is reserved to those who have built tremendous tendon strength, tremendous muscular development, and amazing body mechanics. So yes, it is more hazardous, it is more dangerous because of the overload. You can also have athletes who compensate by not using proper movement. But it is a tool that can have a drastic increase in speed and strength because you're getting your body used to handling those super maximum weights. But it should never be done before you have built your structure to the max, and then try to accentuate by using methods such as bands, reverse bands, and chains. Once you have maybe a year or two of experience with those methods, you might start to include partial range of motion exercises to strengthen the sport-specific angles. So that is my view on using partial range of motion to increase sports performance.